The room didn't go quiet. That's what made it worse. Music kept playing. Someone laughed too loud. Glasses clinked. A server brushed past me with a tray of drinks. And right there, in the middle of all that noise, I felt something inside me slide out of place. She didn't look back at me. She didn't reach for me. She didn't notice me at all. That was the moment I understood I had already been replaced, socially, emotionally, publicly, while I was still standing in the room. My name is Marcus. I was 41 years old then. I worked as a compliance manager for a healthcare firm in Minneapolis. My job was built on rules, accountability, quiet systems that only mattered when they failed. My marriage had lasted 13 years. Long enough to feel permanent. Long enough to make me lazy about asking hard questions. The event wasn't supposed to mean anything. A charity mixer hosted by one of her friends. Rented hall. String lights. Catered food that looked better than it tasted. She asked me to come because it would look weird if she showed up alone. That should have been my first warning. In the months before that night, our life had shrunk into routines. Mornings were polite and efficient. Evenings were quiet in a way that wasn't restful. She spent more time on her phone. More time catching up with people I'd never met. When I tried to talk, she listened the way someone listens while waiting for their turn to speak. At the mixer, she was different. She moved through the room with ease. Confident. Relaxed. Laughing in a way I hadn't heard at home in years. People leaned toward her. Listened. Engaged. I hovered nearby at first, then drifted toward the edge when it became clear I wasn't part of her orbit anymore. She introduced me once. "This is Marcus," she said quickly, already turning back to the group. "Not my husband. Not my partner. Just a name." I watched as conversations formed and reformed without me. Watched her laugh at jokes I didn't hear. Watched her place a hand on someone's arm and leave it there a second too long. Watched people look at her with interest, and then at me with polite confusion. And then it happened. Someone made a joke. Harmless on the surface. Something about relationships and compromise. The group laughed. She laughed too. Then she added something under her breath. Quiet enough to feel private. Loud enough that the circle heard it. "Some people are better at supporting roles," she said, smiling. A few people laughed again. Someone glanced at me. Someone else looked away. No one said anything. She didn't look at me when she said it. She didn't need to. That's when I felt it. That internal shift. Like standing on a rug that's just been pulled back an inch. Not enough to knock you down, but enough to let you know balance is gone. I stood there, holding my drink, realizing that a room full of strangers had just been invited to witness my demotion. And she let it happen. I left early. She didn't ask where I was going. She texted an hour later. "Did you leave?" I replied, "Yeah." Nothing else. When she came home, she was relaxed, buzzed from the night, still riding whatever energy she'd found out there. "You were quiet," she said, kicking off her shoes. "I didn't feel like interrupting," I replied. She frowned. "You're overthinking." I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I just watched her move around the kitchen like nothing had shifted. Over the next few days, the truth surfaced in small ways. Not through confession, but through defensiveness. Through impatience. Through irritation when I asked simple questions. Finally, I asked directly, "Do you respect me?" She blinked. That pause told me everything. "I care about you," she said carefully. "But you don't need to take everything personally." That wasn't an answer. A week later, during a quiet dinner, I asked the question I'd been avoiding. "Is there someone else?" She set her fork down slowly. "I didn't cheat," she said. "If that's what you're asking." But I've outgrown us," she replied. "And I don't want to keep pretending I haven't." There it was. Not remorse. Not regret. Just revision. The confrontation wasn't dramatic. It was colder than that. "I never loved you the way you needed," she said later that night. "You were convenient. Stable. But I felt invisible." I almost laughed at the irony. "My feelings don't matter to me the way they used to," she added, like she was explaining a change in taste. I slept on the couch. Not because I was hurt, though I was, but because something in me had gone still. the part that chased understanding, the part that tried to fix things. The turning point came a few days later, alone in my car after work. I realized I'd been negotiating my place in her life for years, shrinking myself, staying quiet, being agreeable, and even that hadn't been enough. That's when I stopped asking questions. I stopped explaining my pain, stopped waiting for accountability, stopped hoping she'd choose differently. I focused on myself instead. I found an apartment across town. Small, clean, quiet. I packed slowly, deliberately. She watched me like she expected a reaction. Anger, desperation, something she could respond to. "You're really leaving," she said, surprised. "I already left," I replied. The separation was uneventful. No screaming matches. No dramatic ultimatums. Just paperwork and distance. She seemed unsettled by how calm I was. "I thought you'd fight more," she said once. "I'm not fighting for a place I had to earn in public," I replied. That ended the conversation. The resolution wasn't flashy. There was no revenge. No exposure. No moment where she realized what she'd lost and came running back. There was just distance. And over time, clarity. I rebuilt my routines, my mornings, my sense of self. I stopped replaying the night in my head, not because it didn't matter, but because it had taught me what I needed to know. Here's the lesson I carry now. Betrayal doesn't always come from infidelity. Sometimes it comes from humiliation, from being reduced in front of others by the person who is supposed to protect your dignity. And self-respect isn't about demanding better treatment. It's about leaving when your place is decided without you. That room full of strangers didn't take anything from me. They showed me the truth. And once you see it, you don't stay.